of Akshaya Private Limited, headquartered at Chennai, primarily engaged in the field of real estate development in the state of Tamil Nadu. Formed in the year 1995, Management System Certified Company and SA 8000 Company. Akshaya has been rated as a CRI SIL DA3 Plus rated company. Mr. T. Chitti Babu is the past president of CREDAI Chennai and CREDAI Tamil Nadu and is currently the Honorary Secretary of CREDAI National. May I request Mr. T. Chitti Babu, Managing Director, Akshaya Private Limited, to kindly deliver the context setting.
Respected panelists, ladies and gentlemen, very warm good morning. On this day of Estate South 2012, on our topic of accelerating growth. Accelerating growth means we are already there, the growth is already on. And how do we accelerate it? If that is the case, do you have hurdles? Do you have hurdles in the growth path? Or we need to look at some policy decision changes? Or we really look at some kind of a reforms which will make this industry to grow in much faster manner. So the topic is accelerating growth. And the subject title says demolishing hurdles, ironing tracks, fast-tracking growth that is imperative for success of real estate growth in South India. Why we are specifically talking about South India today? In our country, the real estate industry is the second largest contributor for GDP growth. And we are the largest in the country next to agriculture in the deployment of job and job opportunities created for not only for the white collar job, we have the skilled and unskilled and the poverty line, below the poverty line, and nearly about 180 linked services which grows along with this real estate industry. So this industry, and very specifically in South, as Secretary spoke in the morning, South is a growing opportunity in any part of the world. Any city in the globe has grown towards South. Very specifically Chennai, or Hyderabad, or Bangalore, or in Kerala, Cochin. These states have not only grown, we found a place in real estate industry in terms of transparency or in terms of green developments. This number of certifications which is coming in South, very specifically in Tamil Nadu, is highest in IGBC and TERI. So we are the trendsetters, and this conference is happening in Tamil Nadu, and in this particular conference, we wanted to take a subject, how do we accelerate growth on real estate development? There are few bills on the way. As the Secretary mentioned, the real estate regulatory bill, when it's called real estate regulatory bill, it never said real estate regulatory development bill. That's an amendment which has come later, and it's called today as real estate regulatory and development bill. And also how to streamline the process of approval. If this industry need to grow, it need to be regulated, it need to find processes to develop it. And if this industry need to grow, we definitely need to find a way to get approvals in shortest span of time. If the approvals are delayed, there's a cost which is going to be added to it. The cost for approval is a waiting period of 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, or 18 months in different states. But if that can be achieved in a time of 30 days, the cost at least about 400 to 500 rupees would be saved, and it will definitely help the end user who is a customer. So how do we bring the single window clearance without getting into the 48 windows which is already there, and If you call this regulatory bill as a window, this is the 49th window, or if you call that as a window which can able to shut all the doors and bring one single window, we'll definitely welcome it. One more bill called Land Acquisition Bill. How it is going to help real estate development, how it is going to help infrastructure development in this country, and how it is going to accelerate growth for private developments which is happening, which is going to be the major requirement. If you say that 28.53 million homes are shortage, we also contribute a lot for the shortage. In Tamil Nadu, we are the second largest contributor for shortage of homes. Out of this 28.53 million, nearly 3 million homes are shortage in our state alone. How are you going to accelerate growth and catch up this 3 million homes in the next few years? EWS and slum rehabilitation. This is a subject I think we need to talk about, most focus about on the EWS requirements and EWS norms which is coming in. Today Chennai is witnessing about 10%. Andhra is requested and the Andhra is going through a process of even up to 20 to 25%. Bangalore is at 10%. Kerala is still debating how much percentage need to be fixed. Whether these norms are required and whether the norms are meeting the objective of this particular bill, that need to be studied. And how all this is going to help rather than hurdle of growth. Real estate bill in this current form, whether it is going to help acceleration of growth. Land acquisition of bill, whether it is going to help the real estate industry to move forward and acquire large tracts of land and support the industry. And how this is all possible? It is all possible only by debate, only by discussions and bringing the best from our knowledge, sharing with the government bodies. And today we have two strong panelists. No, that doesn't require an introduction. Mr. Panindra Reddy, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development of Tamil Nadu, and Mr. Shekhar Reddy, Vice President of CREDAI National, are here with us today to discuss on all these points. And the outcome of this discussion, definitely I'm sure we can create a white paper, and this white paper can be presented to all these southern states, because these best practices will be always addressed, and this will be taken in the right way for before implementing the bill in the states, respective states. Now I invite Mr. Panindra Reddy to give his views on this 4 large issues in front of us to accelerate the growth. Good morning to all of you. The focus of this session is obviously on the real estate growth, whereas the issues that you have identified for discussion, for example, the real estate regulatory and development bill, or the land acquisition bill, or the EWS and LAG housing provision, they address different issues which may not address the need for real estate growth. They have to be understood in a different context. I perfectly share the concern expressed by Mr. Chitti Babu about the possibility of the potential for the real estate bill to add another layer or another window to the already existing windows. Windows are required to a certain extent for ventilation, but then this has to be understood in a different context. There are very valid concerns. We share your concerns, and in our system, particularly in a regulatory environment, we start with very good intentions of providing relief and succor to the affected people. But to what extent the new regulation would be able to address this issue The efficacy of this layer will have to be, I think, thought through, and a lot of thought has to be given to this. And the second issue, I mean, we were asked to send our remarks or inputs on this bill, and we are yet to um, send our remarks to Government of India. And the second aspect is the land acquisition bill. And essentially, it started from the scores of land acquisition cases that are pending with the courts, and the fact that the Land Acquisition Act as such provides for the guideline value or the market value, whichever is the lowest. So that is against the landowner, which would have been okay in, I think, maybe 50, 60 years back, but not today in the context of a real estate boom. And people whose lands are acquired feel cheated, whereas the owners of the land in the surrounding areas are related because their land prices go up. So the Land Acquisition Act will have to be understood in that context, but then one needs to go into specific provisions. There again, to my knowledge, the state government has also expressed its concerns on certain provisions. The state government, if you've noticed in the recent industrial policy debate, the new industrial land acquisition for industries policy is going to be unveiled, or it is already unveiled. The state government is going to come up with a good policy which will be favoring the landowners. At the same time, would quicken the process of acquisition of lands for industries. I think there has to be a marriage between these two needs, these two stakeholders, and their concerns have to be addressed adequately so that the situation is win-win for both. Similarly, on those lines, we are also coming up. I mean, Mr. Sundararajan had suggested that the other states should also consider, like Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh, about going for a land pooling scheme. We already announced in the during the demand of the housing department that a new land pooling area development scheme would be introduced, and a proposal has come to the government. And on the lines of the Gujarat model, we are also considering a land pooling scheme, which would be helpful for forming satellite cities, for forming road grids. At the same time, it would not entail a painful land acquisition process. It would mean that the landowners would be direct parties to progress, beneficiaries of development, and it would be a win-win for both the developer and also the landowner. And as far as the EWS and the LIG regulation is concerned, yes, there may be practical issues in terms of how do you take this forward. But the necessity for having this provision, I think, from the government perspective, from the public perspective, cannot be disputed, cannot be overemphasized, because the requirement is very huge. In Chennai city, we are talking about 8 lakh, almost about 8 lakh requirement of 8 lakh EWS houses. Across the state, the number runs into much more. And what we have taken upon us during the next plan period, about 2012 to 2017, is only about 1 lakh, because that is what is our delivery capacity, going by past trends under the Rajiv Awas Yojana. The estimation is about 7,500 crores, and the state will have to bring in about 3,500 crores. And this is what the state government can bring in, which itself is a good amount. If you are aware, under the Indira Awas Yojana, the subsidy is about 1 lakh from the state government in the rural areas, whereas in the urban areas, it is almost like 3.5 lakh rupees per house. That's the kind of subsidy that is coming from the state government, and another 3 lakh rupees from the government of India. 10% of that is coming from the beneficiary. And rightfully, from the industry perspective, you may ask that all this should be coming from the taxpayers, I mean, the tax revenue of the government. You should not further tax us indirectly through this provision. Government has many responsibilities. You may be aware. Some of them you may question. Some of them you may welcome. But then, if you consider the tax revenue from motor vehicle tax,
which should go towards road building. That's about 2,000 crores or something, whereas the budget for the roads is about 4,000 crores. The municipalities, the urban local bodies in the state would require about 30,000, 40,000 crores of rupees on during the next 5 years at a very moderate estimation. This is a very moderate estimation going by their past expenditure trends and not taking into consideration what would be the ideal requirement of funds, taking their population projections into the next 5 years or 10 years. I mean, when you're going for an infrastructure project, ideally you'll be looking at a 30-year perspective when you're building an infrastructure project. So if you take that into consideration, what you have estimated as an expenditure for the next 5 years in terms of say 30,000 crores or 40,000 crores is just nothing. And the municipalities are able to generate about 18,000 or 20,000 crores in these 5 years. The remaining has to come by way of loans or grants from the government or from the state government or the central government. This is the context for infrastructure funding. While this is the case, I think we see a justification for this provision. If there are practical difficulties, I think we need to discuss that and then see how it can be implemented less painfully. So, having set out my views on these three issues, I would like to mention a few measures that the state government has taken in the past few months. As Mr. Chittibabu had already mentioned, real estate growth is contributing significantly to the state GDP, and that is the foremost contributor to the state GDP, if I may confess. And infrastructure is critical to the economy in general and also to real estate sector in particular. And having identified this critical need for infrastructure, providing infrastructure, the state government is focusing its attention on the provision of infrastructure. And we have created an infrastructure and amenities fund, and this fund is being purely spent on infrastructure in the urban areas, in the emerging areas, in the suburbs. And in the past few months, we have funded for the water sector projects of the Metro Water, the sewerage projects, which would increase the capacity, which would increase the holding capacity of the city so that we will be able to justify the existing FSI. If you are talking about better FSI, Madam talked about the FSI norms being archaic or out of sync with the reality of developments. If we have to take up a review of the FSI, we need to take up a review of the infrastructure that is available today for water supply or sewerage or transportation or traffic that can support the kind of FSI we are talking about, the kind of FSI that we are demanding. Otherwise, I think we can keep on complaining about not providing water, not evacuating the sewer, and not providing adequate roads. And before taking up a review for increasing the FSI, we need to address these issues. We need to adequately factor in the inputs from infrastructure agencies like Metro Water, Highways Department, the Traffic Police. So in the last few months, we have sanctioned sewerage projects, water supply projects, road projects of Highways Department for widening the roads, for providing subways, skyways in Chennai. It's almost about 400 crores. I mean, this is not much. Again, I mean, there's a big number from this department's point of view, because in the last 3 years we have collected about 1,200 crores, and in the last 3-4 months we have sanctioned about 400 crores. We have provided funding for decongesting Namakkal city by shifting out, by creating a new bus building industry park in Namakkal. We are funding that out of the Infrastructure and Amenities Fund. And Tuticorin is going to get funding for widening of its roads. Perambalur is going to get a bypass out of this fund. So the Infrastructure and Amenities Fund, the recent hike, though may had come as a kind of a dampener or a shocker, but I think it has adequate justification and is being well spent. I just wanted to emphasize that. And on the FSI front, we are taking up a review of the possibility of increasing the FSI along the metro rail corridor. This study will be soon entrusted to a consultant, and after studying the possibilities and factoring in the inputs from the infrastructure agencies, the government would be taking a decision on increasing the FSI along the metro rail corridor. A concern was expressed about the inordinate time taken for issuing planning permissions and lack of transparency, number of windows. These issues are being addressed, and we have started a structured interaction with CREDAI. We have identified issues which need to be addressed, and we have partly addressed them. One of the issues, like the problems being faced by the IT buildings for lack of demand, that is being addressed by coming out with a package for them to transit to office accommodation or commercial space. Another issue that CREDAI had raised was about allowing parking in the floors above the stilt floor. Right now it's the basement floor which is allowed, and the stilt floor. This is also being positively looked into. Very soon we'll be coming out with orders. And the land pooling area development scheme, government is very keenly looking into this. Maybe by the next session of the assembly, this bill will be brought in. So there is a clear focus on providing urban infrastructure. There is a clear focus on filling these gaps. Though we are supposed to be slightly proactive and planning for better capacities, but I think we have a huge task on hand in terms of filling the gaps, and we are looking at both parallelly, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to sustain this stream in terms of the present growth rates, and whether acceleration is needed or possible, at what cost to the city, to the environment. These are issues which I think which are larger issues, but from the industry perspective, I think growth and acceleration are welcome. And from the government perspective, I think I'm here to assure you that we are working at it, and we are always available for consultation, interaction, and to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your views, sir. I should really accept being the president for CREDAI Chennai and CREDAI Tamil Nadu for 27 months, and my interactions with the Housing Secretary, the kind of process and development, the kind of systems, and the kind of modification he has done for getting the approval process in a shorter span is really appreciable. He has actually heard us well, and he has made changes in even submission of drawings in 2 forms, which has really taken a lot of time on the scrutiny. Now we can parallelly do this submission for the scrutiny of title and the FSI clearances, that is the site inspection report. Parallelly, we can work on the architectural plans and come for the approval, which itself straight away cut down nearly about 4 months' time. Always the interactions with him is quite positive, and the way he explained us that why this impact fee and how he justified this impact fee is being collected and utilized for infrastructure development for this state. But always this question arises in this developer's mind. On a quid pro quo basis, when we collect this infrastructure fee on one particular area and deploy these funds in a different area, whether it is justifiable in terms of law or this thing. This is a question always comes in the mind of private developers. I'm sure in the course of discussion he will definitely give us a clarification that we will appreciate it. Now I request Mr. Shekhar Reddy to come and his views on the subject. Once these views is heard, we will have a debate for about 15-20 minutes, and later we will open for question and answer session.
I'm a panelist actually in the last Burdwan session on skill development in the evening. But all of a sudden, the late night, I got a call that the secretary, Municipal Administration, Andhra Pradesh, Dr. Vijay Kumar is not in position to come. So why don't you come and speak on the same subject? So I accepted it, and I come here to share my views. TRADAI at the national level, day to day, interacting with various ministries, agencies, and various issues. It's very active across the country. We got about 114 chapters across the country, about 10,000 developers members. Actually, my president, Mr. Lalit Kumar Jain, was supposed to come and address you today's inaugural session, but his health was not good, so he could not come. And in the agenda, one of the last item is this: the reforms already taken place. Most probably, I'll start with that. In the country, Andhra Pradesh is the only state which has done revolutionary reforms in building rules in 2006 itself. But I can say with the lot of proactiveness from the involvement of the developers community in our state, we ourselves have taken initiative. We went to the government that there is a need to change the building rules and the FSI, density clause, so many other issues which are contradicting or which are too many parameters defining only the building volume. So as a result, in the process, we have to convince environmental groups, media, politicians, officials. We did so much of exercise, but today I can say Andhra Pradesh is the best example in the country, and you are aware that we have no FSI concept in Andhra Pradesh state. In some of the properties outside the city, periphery of the city, where the bigger roads are there, bigger plots are there, sky is the limit. Generally, people don't believe that such act is there in this country, but sky is the limit. There nobody can stop you. Only you have to take care of the market forces demand, the buyer's demand in that particular locality, and decide what should be the FSI you want to consume. And so the laws are made very simple. The height of the building in a given plot is decided with respect to the size of the plot, with respect to the abutting road width. These are the only two parameters. And most of the time, the density clause is taken away, the ground coverage clause is taken away, and we had different setbacks for different types of uses of buildings. But now we have simplified and uniform setbacks for different uses. It's very easy, any layman can understand. And over and above, whatever floors we construct, there is impact fee on that. It's not that high impact fee. In fact, I was told the Planning Commission has appreciated the AP policy, and it seems there is a thinking that 40% of the land price to be taken as a impact fee. I think that policy is going to be failure. What the government charges in Andhra Pradesh is about 6 to 8% of the value of the land, market land value. See, otherwise it won't become. See, actually this building rules without FSI has become a tool for affordable housing. This is the only way we can provide affordable housing. So the Andhra Pradesh is the best example to reduce the cost. See, in this process, because of the higher FSI, the land value per square foot of development built up area has come down. It's a win-win situation. The corporation is getting huge funds for the infrastructure. The landlord is benefited. Since the ultimate cost is less, the local citizen is benefited. So overall, it's a win-win situation for the government the landowner and the consumer. It's a win-win situation, and there is a built-in mechanism in the policy. See, developers, as per their whims and fancy, they cannot go ahead. With there are a lot of inbuilt parameters. When a developer want to construct this building, high-rise buildings, he has to take care of the adjacent buildings which are low-rise. He can sell at the lesser price. If the land value is less, he is a competitor. So if that has to be taken care of. And if you are going high-rise, your number of levels, we got a very high percentage of parking norms. So if you are going up vertical, your parking levels increases, you have to go down, your cost of construction goes up, your overall cost of construction goes up, and the fire services come into picture. So the cost escalation will definitely, increase the end product cost. Therefore, the developer has to be very careful in going for the number of floors. He has to compete with the low-rise development also, where the land cost is less. This is really good for where the land cost is higher side. There definitely a high-rise building will developer can sell at lesser price than a low-rise building. So these are the inbuilt mechanism. And another thing is one of the best examples, best regulator system. Before this act came into policy in 2006, almost I can say 97-98% of the developers used to violate and get a stay order and complete the building and hand over and leave the place. Nobody, I think not even 0.1% of the developers used to take occupancy certificate. But after this act has come into picture, whoever has taken the permissions, I can say 98% of the developers are taking occupancy certificate today in our state. The mantra is very simple. There is a self-enforcement mechanism. It is something like, in villages they say, giving the almara key to the thief. So and so item is there, put in the almara, be careful, this key is with you. Similar system, see, at the time of sanction of the permission, 10% of the built-up area is taken over by the local body, and the 10% of the built-up area is kept in the prohibited register with the registration authorities. So the developer has to construct as per the sanction plan and get a completion certificate from his architect and go to the corporation and get the occupancy certificate. Then only the 10% of the built-up area is released. If the 10% of the built-up area is not released, the project is not viable. Second thing is, you will not get water connection or electric connection. If at all it gets, there is a provision, he has to pay continuously, perennially, 3 times the property tax. And we also introduced in this policy, compulsory license is required for a developer. So the developer, he will be blacklisted, his license will be cancelled if he is not taking the occupancy certificate. And another issue, now today we are talking about private sector, boot system, taking up large national highways, the toll system, and with the high density, because there is no FSI, there is high density. So the cost of services will become less for a citizen because of high density. At the same time, when the high density is there, the projects are viable. Infrastructure projects within the corporations are viable, with urban areas are viable. There is the scope for the private sector to play on a boot system. And there is a huge scope for the private development because of the high density. This has to also keep the state governments in mind. But today they are spending huge money on infrastructure. It's a loss for all infrastructure in urban area, is a loss to the government or the corporation. But the high density will definitely show a very positive result. And what I feel is, one is this side, other side, the government of India is losing great opportunity when they are talking about the regulatory authority. I think we should use this regulatory authority. Earlier, actually, they wanted to brought a model act and to request the state government to implement. But now they have taken over. They are now going ahead with this under concurrent list. They are going ahead with this. So it's almost they made mandatory for every state they have to follow. This opportunity they should have used as a tool to bring in as no the extra windows, no, the referred extra windows. Instead of extra windows, this one single window should have solved entire problems and should have contributed for the accelerating growth of not only South, entire country. So how is like that? How is that? I mentioned few of the CREDA has done some exercise. We need to go about 35 to 40 agencies to bring about 170 documents to apply for a multi-story building. And there is a shortfall of, as per the government of India, about 26 million. Out of that, 94% belongs to category of EWS LIG. But as but private consultants say that is not 26 million, it is above 40 million. So when this is a scenario, so and other side also the taxation, there is a double taxation, multiple taxation, there is no input credit is available, and about 36% is the taxation as in today a low income group or a middle income housing purchaser is going to pay. So we should have taken a better way of regulatory authority by bringing a very comprehensive regulatory authority which includes a single window system. That means all the invoices so far given by the government agencies can be outsourced, can be given to the consultants in respective fields by giving the checklist, norms and everything. They should be accountable. The consultants can submit their whatever the invoices they have issued from year to year or yearly basis onwards. They can validate it, they can renew their license depending on how their performance and how they are monitoring that. So instead of going a citizen to the departments have an enforcing authority. That part they can do it anytime. But giving all the invoices can be given to the consultants. That is one. If that consultants are there, then the private developers can go to these consultants. Then online sanction of the approvals is possible. Just bringing online sanction will not solve our time loss, because online permission is also there that we have to go to all the departments. So why should I go to fire department to get their NOC at the initial stage? Need not be. No, the fire department can outsource the services of consultants. Developers can go to the outsourced consultant and get their approval. So that becomes easy. Then that in turn give a scope for the online sanction. So online sanction, single window system is possible if the government of India thinks that they can bring in this into the regulatory authority. Not only that, they should also cap the taxation. Suppose the other regulatory authorities, they have a role to cap the tariff or whatever is there. So without the knowledge of the or approval of the regulatory authority, no local body, state government, departments or government of India should not raise the tax on the housing sector. Another thing is also at this time itself, when they are going ahead with this is the time to reform, rationalize the taxation also. Now there is 36%. Why don't you bring down it to 15%, 12%? Unless this is done, we cannot look for the growth. And most of us are paying toward the services to various departments, but we are not getting services in time and also not quality services. So this has to be again should come in the purview of the regulatory authority. And one more thing is, lot of property land prices are escalating because of the greediness of the government departments, because they themselves are growing the lands meant for the public utility. For example, EWS housing, LIG housing, middle class housing, those lands are sold in the public auctions at 5 times, 10 times. For that greediness, they are unnecessarily escalating the prices of even the private sector. So this has to be stopped. This has to be brought in as a mandatory clause in the regulatory authority. And also, this regulatory authority also should consider the against the cartelization of the building material manufacturers. This is an important issue, because unless the government of India controls the input cost, we cannot deliver the affordable housing to that segment. Another issue for at least EWS and LIG segment is concerned, there has to be, the government has to come out with a solution that during the entire term of the EMI, that rate of interest should remain and they should be given a concessional rate of interest. And for these projects, they have to come down special packages for the construction funding also. Otherwise, nobody will go there. Or most of the developers will only go for the high-end projects. And instead of going in a negative manner, I think we can encourage most of the developers or to get a good product. The Real Estate Regulatory Authority also should have a mechanism for the rating of the developers, rating of the product. This should be part of the regulatory authority. And after doing so much of exercise, what I feel is EWS and LIG is only possible. And it's possible if government thinks in the right direction, in a positive way. With my experience, this is possible. Only thing is you leave it free to the market. If any developer want to start EWS or LIG, no permission is required. No taxes to be paid. Nothing to be paid. Free. There is a free zone. Only thing is, yes, the permission approval is to be outsourced. It is to be given to the empaneled consultant, and occupancy is also must. There we don't want to compromise. We don't want to bring a slums again. So taxation should be taken out, and end user should get, like viability gap fund we are giving to a lot of projects. The end user, the common man, the weaker man should get a viability gap fund. That means capital subsidy and also interest subsidy. Then only the 26 millions will come to zero. Otherwise, 26 will become 260 millions. Nothing is going to happen with this government policies. Even the madam was saying in the morning, last 7 years they are experimenting EWS and LIG. It's only experiment. I can tell you, we brought in a very good policy for EWS LIG in Andhra Pradesh. But government of India insisted that you should follow our policy. What our state government did is they just cut it, that policy 2 paragraphs and put it, pasted in the policy. They brought in a new GO. For the last 15 months in Andhra Pradesh state, there's no single permission is issued. 15 months, over and above 1 acre. No project is sanctioned. It is just lying. We are talking about the Chittibabu Garu acceleration of the growth. But there is no growth. Entire industry stands still. This is the policy of the government of India. We have been talking to them. See, their requirement is, they say, at this stage we don't want to go back. They know. They are admitting during our meetings. I don't know, madam is here or not. They are admitting, we cannot go back now. You give us some idea. How can the idea will come? See, it is possible in government lands. We can do that. But here, EWS, LIG, or at least EWS, is an indirect taxation on the rest of the people. Already 36% taxation is there. And if we construct also, that level income person, they are unable to buy that. So the stock will be dead stock. See, we said government, okay, you buy from us, we'll construct and give it to you at no profit. But they are not coming forward. It is only greediness. Under JNU, state governments are greedy. They are just to take that money. In fact, this clause, if I know very well, Redigar can clarify, it's not a mandatory clause. It is not a mandatory clause. They may not adopt that. And even property tax also should be made on square foot basis, which should take not more than 15 days of the rent. This is also one of the agenda we are negotiating with our state government. And preparation of the master plan is a really, that is where we can concentrate on the growth. Most of the master plan today are prepared by the consultant keeping on the past growth population statistics. That is outdated. Today we have to focus on what other countries are doing, what other states are doing, what other cities are doing, on what basis they are going. See, unless you have a projected GDP of that particular town or city with you, for to that and what employment you want to create, keeping in that the industrial policy and everything, that growth the state government should give policy guidelines to the consultants. Then only we can expect something, positive master plan. And in most of the master plans, the consultants are very, very conservative. They don't give excess, allocation of the areas, residential, commercial, industrial. They don't give. I don't know what they are losing. See, when you create excess land use in the respective land use zones, the land prices will fall. The best example is, I can say, the outer ring road in Hyderabad. The actually demand remains same, the population remains same, but overnight the land availability on 160 kilometers, up to few kilometers width, lakhs of acres have come into access to the citizens. It's a buyer's market today. There are too many sellers. See, that should be the policy, actually master plan. The land availability should be more. The seller has to look for a landlord. Now the sellers have to look for a buyer. The master plan plays definitely a major role in looking the growth of any town or any country. And skill development also should be made mandatory. Now today I am telling you I am part of the CADAI, but most of the developers, they are not taking it serious. There is a huge shortfall of the skilled people in the country, but people are not taking up, and in future I think there is a great difficulty is going to be there. Unless it is made mandatory, at least 10% of the skilled people they have to employ, whether the contractor or a developer, they have to employ 10% of the skilled people who have certificates. I think then only people will realize the importance of the skill development. One more thing is, there is no title guarantee. The state governments are taking the registration charges and stamp duty. There is no title guarantee. Unless this is addressed, the customer will not get the justice. And another issue what we raised is in the meeting, when the developer himself is a consumer, when the developer's grievances are plan sanction, as KG has said, 15 months taking in Bombay, unless the consumer developers, if the grievances are addressed by the regulatory authority, how can the developer consumer will do a justice to the allotee consumer, the flat owner consumer? It's not possible. See, unless the government of India and state government addresses the problems and issues of the developer is helpless. So he only can bring some material, something, but the regulatory system, policies, and the NOCs, everything, this government of India has to now the time, high time to come forward and simplify. In fact, so many NOCs are not required. There is no meaning. It's only just paperwork. They can avoid all these things. Nothing will happen. So many buildings have come up. So everything is doing a good job now. There's a lot of customer awareness is there. Even customer is the boss today. You got awareness. That is taking care of everything. So with this, I'll share some more ways where some questions are. Thank you very much.
Bringing about the hurdles of growth in very specifically in Andhra Pradesh through EWS implementation, and how growth can be accelerated through master plan, planning it well, plan the city well. Through that, how the land passes will come into real estate development, and also how important is skill development and the kind of shortage which is coming in the country with the unskilled and semi-skilled people. Thank you, Shekhar. Now let's quickly discuss on these 4 issues. One is the real estate regulatory bill which is coming in. The preamble of the bill says to regulate planned development in a transparent manner, protect the interest of the customers, and tribunal to adjudicate disputes. But if the bill is going to talk only on these regions, that is, if it is going to protect only the interest of the customer, and if it is going to address only the issue of dispute redressal mechanism, how are we going to address the main issues of the housing shortage in the country? I would rather say the bill preamble would have been how to increase the housing stock, how to bring transparency and bring down the cost for the end user, and to facilitate time-bound approval processes through a single window mechanism, and probably I would say to regulate the plant development and bring all the stakeholders. There are four major stakeholders in this industry. One is the developer, of course. The second one is the financial institutions which fund these projects and the home buyers. And third one is the customer who buys the project, and it's not the end product is getting sold. The product is getting sold on the day one through an agreement. So unless both the parties performs, delivery would be a difficult task. And the fourth is definitely the authorities, the bodies which is going to give the approvals. Of course, the project is need to be launched only after approval. But the service agencies, which comes at a later point of time, which is the electricity connection, sanitary connection, your gas connections. If these things are not part of the bill, how the bill is going to accelerate growth of real estate industry, and whether this objective of this bill is going to be met. See, we the real estate developers are not against this bill. We definitely wanted, we most heartedly welcome this bill for the objective, if it is going to be met by increasing the housing stock, by getting the housing at a reasonable price for the customer, and bringing all the four stakeholders within the bill. I'm sure this regulatory bill is definitely going to accelerate growth. I would definitely have wanted to have the views of Mr. Vanindra Reddy on this particular issue.
I wish there was a Government of India representative here in this session. As I've already told you, we share your concerns on the regulatory and development bill for the real estate sector. We have not yet communicated our remarks to the Government of India because we had a few reservations about this bill, and it would be slightly premature for me to say yes or no about the bill in this forum.
In this bill also, one more important thing is which is coming in. It's actually for debate, or probably we can think through. Registration of all these projects need to come under this, and we need to get all the approvals before going to the registration of this certificate. After investing so much of money in the land and after getting all the approvals, and in case if this authority rejects the approval, what happened to the investment in the project? Another one important factor which is coming in this particular bill is about it restricts or it takes only projects which is coming above 4,000 square meter. That's nearly about 1 acre of land. If this particular provision is going to be, if this provision is going to be in this bill, are we saying that the housing stock is again going to be reduced? Because if the private developers wanted to be away from this regulatory authority as a window, if people decide to go for a smaller kind of a development, the kind of stock which is going into the industry is going to be much reduced and the cost is going to be increased. This is also one of the concern of the real estate industry. Now 70% occurrence of the real estate development which is happening and which is registered under this has to be put in a separate account. When you say 70% of the cost is include the land cost, if it is include the land cost where the development happens further, the developer's money is going to be blocked for quite a lot of time, and it need to be released only after completion of the project. So this is also going to bring more shortage, because the developer may not be in a position to procure further land for development if the money is going to be blocked. And there is a provision also, reject the approval with a reason. That's a very dangerous kind of a clause which is part of the bill. If there is a, with the reason we can reject a bill, we reject a proposal or a project, it's quite possible in our country. So that one particular thing probably developers will be concerned about it. And there are many good things which is going to happen through this bill. in kind of transparency. The area statement need to be uh, given with a detailed breakup, and all the advertisements need to be given in advance, and the sales can start only after getting all the approvals. The projects cannot be launched without the approval. Those good points are going to bring in a level playing field for real estate development. And the time schedule for service connections, that's as I mentioned earlier, if those agencies are not brought in the part of the bill, like electricity connection, water connection, gas connection, if these agencies are not part of the bill, and if the responsibility is going to be with the developer, it's definitely going to create more issues. I want to hear from Shekhar on these issues.
Most of the issues you have raised, you have debated at the national consultative meeting, and also followed by we had a close meeting with the official meeting with the respective stakeholders with the housing ministry. About 70% of the cost is concerned. We said the land is already acquired before we go for the marketing. The land component should not be taken into consideration. Only the cost of construction to be taken into this account. Then rejection of this registration with the authority, it again means a lot of harassment and bringing entire industry under regulated authority. They have in principle agreed that it will be online disclosure of information, automatically will get a registration number. So that almost I can is issue solved. What are the others? And see, they bringing this, as you said, no, they have mentioned 4,000 square meters. Some developers wanted that class to be removed. It should be applicable even somebody is constructing 4 or 5 flats also. But what CREDAI has recommended to start with, do it in a phased manner. We are not against. To start with, consider in the Union Territory areas, the size should be 40,000 square meters. Then you will know what are the problems in the industry. Then you can come down. But some people said, no, there is no plot size, 4 or 5 units also you should bring in. But I think they don't have that infrastructure. I think it's going to be failure. But by reducing the area also, even I know Rajasthan, there is the EWS LIG scheme. Most of the landlords are selling, they're breaking their land. If they got 10 acres, they are selling all plots. They're making about 11 plots. Each plot is less than 1 acre and selling to avoid this EWS reservation. So always the owners of the land will come out with some solution and bypass this. So that is not, by making mandate, nothing will work in this country, we know. Make it voluntary, give some way out to them. Do like this. If you do like this, you get this. Or let the government give the land. We'll constantly give to them. There is no issue. But now now government very cleverly, the state and central government, actually they are the providers of the these houses. Earlier housing corporation, housing board, they used to do this. Now slowly they are escaping from the responsibility and passing on to the private sector, and they want to become just a facilitator at the cost of the LIG, MIG and HIG people. See, whatever taxes they are taking from the other rest of the people, they are not contributing to. The national highway fuel, the infrastructure cess is collected from the sale of fuel. That means every citizen of the country is paying. But here, only the limited people who are the shelterless people who want to buy a shelter, they have to pay. So that is the reason, some of the issues. What are the other things?
Thank you, Shekhar. So the question what we have placed in front of our Honorable Housing Secretary was the impact fee and infrastructure revision, how this is being collected and how it is being deployed in different places, whether it is justifiable. The second question was that how the EWS contribution which is being enforced on the private developers. On the state body, state government agencies like Tamil Nadu Housing Board or Slum Clearance Board, what is the kind of contribution which is going to be expected out of them in this process?
There are two parts to this question on I&A. One is the justification for imposing I&A charges, for which I have already explained. The second part is whether you are investing the money that you have collected in a particular area. For example, Chennai contributes a lion's share of the fund towards I&A charges. Are you spending there? The complaint that we get is that you are getting equal amount from the GTCP areas also, but then you're not spending so much of money. So Chennai is getting adequate, if not more, attention in terms of funding from I&A fund. Basically because I think most of the growth is happening in the periphery of Chennai. And even recently, for the newly added areas, for the water supply schemes, for the newly added areas, for the sewerage schemes, we have provided funds from the I&A charges. And it's actually totally booked. The I&A fund is totally booked, if not 110%. Basically because the execution would happen over a period of 2 or 3 years, we have sanctioned more out of this fund, assuming that more accretions will be coming to this fund. Yes, the TNHB is going towards low-cost housing. I mean, because they go for the historical prices for the land cost, and the construction cost is maybe similar to what you have in the private sector. So that is the reason why they will be able to quote at a slightly lesser rate compared to the private sector. And they are doing about 3,000, 4,000 houses a year. And I think they may be the only agency which may be doing LAG and MAG housing to that extent. The proportion of the housing, LAG and MAG housing done by TNHB is pretty high compared to private sector, if you take any private player. And as far as slum clearance board is concerned, the EWS housing, any EWS housing what the name in the state is happening only through the slum clearance board and purely through the state fund. 50% from the government of India and 50% from the state government. And 10% that is supposed to be coming from the beneficiaries is coming with a lag. So upfront the state is to invest this money and come up with the housing. Right now we have about 30,000 houses coming up in Perumbakam area. And Mr. Shekhar Reddy talked about the state governments being greedy and then selling away land at 5 times, 10 times the cost at which they have acquired. But I think, I don't know about Andhra, what they're doing, but here Tamil Nadu government has not sold any land that is earmarked for EWS housing. Wherever we have EWS housing, if we are going for reconstruction using higher FSI, we are doing in situ there itself. And if we are doing in Perumbakam huge housing, there are some concern expressed by social groups saying that you are creating a crime capital at Perumbakam. So we've reduced it from say 30,000 to 27,000 and 3,000. We said let us come up with some other activity there, not have a few more houses. We may have a commercial activity or something so that it will create some income generating activity for the people who are going there. And Kannagi Nagar or Semanjeri or Perumbakam, the kind of development that we have done there is, when we have done that 10 years back, yes, there were complaints. And the amenities, there was a lag in terms of the time when people have gone there and the amenities that have come up. But today, Perumbakam, if you take water supply is going hand in hand at the same pace. Sewerage infrastructure is going at the same pace. We have sanctioned a bus terminus there. We have sanctioned ration shops. We have sanctioned the schools are coming up there, and medical centers are available there. So it's going to be an integrated township in Perumbakam, and all the facilities will be there up and running by the time people go there. And there is also a proposal now under the consideration of the government to provide maybe free bus pass for 5 years for the people who go there, so that they come back to the city, do their jobs before, by the time they get their jobs on the OMR, it will help them at the time being.